Annual review day, you need to give feedback to someone you manage in 20 minutes. You know them very well. The performance metrics and feedback are ready. For some reason, you keep rereading the same bullet point in your notes because you cannot hold that thread. Nothing is technically wrong. Your brain just doesn't feel like it's working. Let's talk about what you can actually do in those 20 minutes to prepare for the meeting. I won't talk about general motivation. The neuroscience or what is happening in that moment is much cooler than the general motivational stuff. Science has some specific tips that can truly help you prepare for the meetings or decisions. I'm Dr. Lasas. I have a PhD in neuroscience from University of Washington and over 15 years in the pharmaceutical industry, working on clinical trials. I'm here to provide research-based answers for women who refuse to accept vague explanations about their changing brains. A few years ago, I was pitching my services to a new client. I wanted to impress them. After about a few minutes, I needed a word in English, a completely ordinary professional word when I was describing how I can help them plan their clinical research strategy. I just couldn't remember it. Yes, English is my third language, but I've been presenting professionally in English for decades. This isn't a vocabulary problem, so I paused, exhaled slowly, not dramatically, and said, "Let me be precise about this." It bought me 4 seconds. The prefrontal cortex sits just behind your forehead and runs the executive branch of your brain. Working memory, inhibitory control, cognitive flexibility, holding competing options and weighing them. Every skill you need when you are doing your job. It is not your instinct center. It is your deliberation center. And it happens to be the most stress-sensitive part of your brain. Evolution has a thing for making our modern lives really difficult. Acute stress, even mild, uncontrollable stress, triggers a surge of cortisol, norepinephrine, and dopamine. All three interact with the prefrontal cortex. Both norepinephrine and dopamine follow an inverted U-curve. Moderate levels sharpen prefrontal cortex function, and stress-induced neurotransmitter spikes impair it. The pressure that is supposed to make you sharper starts working against you. This inverted U-curve brain response was described by Arnstein at Yale in animal models, but human imaging studies support this mechanism. A study published in Biological Psychiatry by Quinn and colleagues used functional MRI to scan 24 women during difficult working memory tasks. First, they scanned when women were calm, then after they experienced an acute stress. Under stress, the prefrontal cortex activation dropped significantly. That is the exact region you need most active in a business meeting or for making a hard decision. Little caveat, these were college-age women, so we need further studies in women past their 40s to confirm. However, it's not expected to be much different. The perfect study for perimenopausal women doesn't exist yet. A 15-minute breathing protocol tested right before a real meeting, then cognitive performance measured to see how the protocol worked. It just doesn't exist yet. What we do have is a chain of evidence linking stress biology, breathing practices, and cognitive performance. So let's walk through each piece of that chain. Take a second to subscribe if you want more videos like this. Every Tuesday, I release a new deep dive into perimenopause neuroscience. No guesswork, no wellness trends, just research and mechanisms. The most solid study I found was published in the Journal of Psychophysiology in 2022 by Laborde and his team. They took 78 healthy adults, average age 23, and had them do one 15-minute session of slow breathing. 6 breaths per minute, so 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. They did that in 3 5-minute blocks. The control group just watched TV. Afterwards, the breathing group did better on the test which measured focus and impulse control. They also showed better working memory and made fewer repetitive mistakes on a task that measures mental flexibility. In other words, the exact skills you need when you're sitting in a tense review meeting trying to think clearly and not react emotionally. The problem is that the average age was 23, so not midlife women. They didn't break the result down by sex either. What's interesting, the improvement wasn't explained by changes in heart rate variability. The researchers were very clear that the exact mechanism is still unknown. Another study that's more relevant here came out in February 2025. They looked at 34 postmenopausal women and had them do one session of slow breathing, then compared them to a control group. After that one single session, the breathing group had faster reaction times and better accuracy on more complex reaction tests. Now, let's be clear about the limits. There were only 34 women. It was postmenopausal, not premenopausal. The tasks were computerized reaction tasks, not real-life, high-stake decisions. And it absolutely needs replication in larger groups. However, what it tells us right now is that a single session of slow breathing in midlife women can improve certain cognitive functions. And that's promising. Cyclic sighing has been all over social media for the past couple of years, mostly because of a 2023 study in Cell Reports Medicine from the now famous Huberman lab. They ran a randomized trial with 108 people and compared cyclic breathing for 5 minutes a day, which is a double inhale through the nose followed by a long exhale, to other breathing and mindfulness practices over 28 days. The cyclic sighing group showed the biggest boost in positive mood. It's too bad, but they did not measure cognition. Not working memory, not focus, not decision quality. They measured mood and physiological arousal. So we can't really say cyclical sighing sharpens your thinking based on this study. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I'm saying we don't yet have published high-quality data showing it improves cognitive performance in any group. But you should definitely experiment to see if it works. I sometimes use the technique as well. There's also a 2023 meta-analysis in Scientific Reports by Finchman and colleagues. They pooled 12 randomized trials with a total of 785 adults and found that slow-paced breathing significantly reduced self-reported stress. The outcome was how stressed people said they felt, not how they performed on cognitive tests. So the concept remains to be proven with data. The evidence that feels most practical for that 10 to 20 minute window before a meeting or a decision actually comes from a mind-wandering research. Mrazek and colleagues in 2012 ran 2 experiments with about 75 people each. They found that just 8 minutes of mindful breathing reduced mind wandering during a sustained attention task compared to just relaxing or reading. Mind wandering is when your brain drifts off into unrelated thoughts. If you've ever reread the same slide 3 times before a meeting, that's probably it. The study was done in young adults of mixed sex, and they measured off-task thinking, not actual decision quality. But the mechanism of mindful breathing makes sense for important focus, and other studies confirm its usefulness. Mindful breathing is simply noticing the natural rhythm of your breathing, the temperature of the air, the movement of your chest or belly, and the length of your inhale and exhale without trying to change it. The mammalian diving reflex is an automatic body response, an instinct, that kicks in when your face hits cold water and you briefly hold your breath. Cold stimulation around your eyes, your forehead, nose, and cheeks activates the trigeminal nerve in the face, which sends signal to the brainstem. The brainstem then ramps up the vagus nerve to slow your heart rate and tightens your blood vessels in your arms and legs to preserve oxygen for your heart and your brain. When you splash very cold water on your face or use a cold pack for about 10 to 15 seconds, your heart rate slows within seconds. Some human studies also show that a cold pack on your face can reduce acute stress and panic symptoms. You're essentially interrupting a fight or flight instinct, which can hit you before an important meeting or decisions. It doesn't directly improve working memory or decision quality. What it does is shift your nervous system out of high sympathetic overdrive, desire to escape. That creates a short window where your prefrontal cortex isn't competing with racing heart and stress signals, which can make you feel calmer and less reactive before a meeting. So, you have 20 minutes before a meeting or decision. What does science support doing? Principle 1. Slow your breathing before cortisol peaks, not after. A protocol popularized by Laborde and colleagues was very simple. 6 breaths per minute, which means 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out for 15 minutes. You can break it into 3 5-minute blocks if that makes it easier to stick with. You can do it sitting in your office chair, in the hallway, even in a bathroom before the meeting starts. The breath count is the whole protocol. No app, no equipment, no perfect. Silence is needed. And the goal isn't to feel blissful or deeply relaxed. Wouldn't that be nice though? The goal is to walk into that room with your prefrontal cortex online, instead of letting stress hormones run the meeting for you. Principle 2. Frame it as an attentional focus, not stress management. The 2012 Mrazek study suggests that just 8 minutes of focusing on your breath is enough to reduce mind wandering. You're not trying to convince yourself the meeting isn't high stakes. You're just temporarily parking the mental tabs that are still open. The school message, the unfinished report, the email you haven't said. You're helping your prefrontal cortex to deal with what's actually in front of you now. Close the laptop, sit, and follow your breath. When your mind drifts to the agenda or to-do list, just notice it and bring your attention back. 8 minutes is enough. Principle 3. Use the mammalian diver's reflex to steady yourself if you are feeling panicky. 10 to 15 seconds of cold water or cold pack from a freezer on the face can act like a quick reset. It's a fast response, not a long-term stress solution. But in the right moment, that short window can be super useful. I love using it when I feel panic setting in. Principle 4. One session won't fix chronic cortisol elevation. The MAD 2017 study, which showed lower cortisol and better sustained attention, was based on 8 weeks of consistent practice. A short breathing session before a meeting is a more modest tool. It's an attentional reset. If your cortisol is high because you're sleeping poorly, juggling too much, working too long, 15 minutes of breathing before one meeting isn't going to fix that. What it can do is buy you a window. It can steady your attention at that moment. But shifting your baseline stress takes consistent practice over weeks, not one pre-meeting ritual. Which brings me back to that client pitch. I got the client, and now, before anything high stakes, this is what I do. Laptop closed, 6 breaths per minute, up to 15 minutes, typically 8. Just counting the breath. Sometimes I'll throw in a cyclic sighing for a couple of minutes or put a cold pack on my face for 15 seconds as well. Really depends what the situation calls for. I'm not trying to feel zen. I'm trying to walk into that room with my prefrontal cortex online, not being shut down by the catecholamine storm. Most of the time, that's enough. There's so many other tricks that might work long-term. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to make another video. Press like to help other women find research-based answers instead of wellness myths. Subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the series. And if you know a professional woman in her 40s who's been told her symptoms are just stress or aging, share this with her. And I hope to see you next week.